My dad got married last year, and for a while his wife's kids have been living here too. I, 16 male, hate it to be honest, because there's no privacy. We have to share everything, even my room, to her two sons, Bryce, 15, and Alan, 9. And everything is family time. If we're going to get ice cream or see a movie or go to the park, it has to be everyone or no one goes. Like, yeah, I guess I'm used to only doing stuff with my dad and my older brother, 24. So maybe that's why it's hard, but still, we don't spend any time together at all. For birthdays, it was always a thing where my dad takes each of us out to do something special, then something later as a family together. Even when my brother was living here with us, he always spent equal time. But now, every time with him's got to be shared by everyone else. My birthday was on last Friday. We were supposed to go kayaking. And the thing is, Bryce's birthday is the same day as mine. So Dad tells me he's coming too, so we could celebrate our both birthdays. But I didn't want that. I told my dad we never get a second to do something that's just me and him. Yeah, he's got other kids now, so it's not going to be the same time we spend together. But we spend no time at all anymore. And I asked him for once if this can be me and him. He told me he's sorry we don't hang out anymore, and he knows all the time is going to them. But it's Bryce's birthday too, and he wants to come. It got me mad after telling him how I've been feeling, and he still didn't want to make this only for me and him. So I told him I don't feel like going anymore. My dad told me to come with us, but I didn't want to. When they left, my brother came to pick me up after I told him what happened. He took me to eat, and we went to the movies, which was fun. Now my dad thinks I'm the a-hole for choosing to go with my brother instead, when it would have been nice if I was with him and Bryce. Also, that I owe Bryce an apology for skipping out and going with my actual brother instead. I don't know. He seems like he's really hurt because he wanted us to do this together, and he won't say anything to me for right now. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your dad is doing a bad job of blending the families. You made a reasonable request, and he wouldn't listen. It's good that you have your brother to help you out. The good news is you only have 2 more years of dealing with your dad's house. Not the a-hole. Your dad really should work harder to understand where you are coming from. If he had just split the day and spent some alone time with you, and then asked you to do a family activity, there wouldn't have been a problem. He needs to own up to his unwillingness to meet you where you are at, is causing this. Not the a-hole. I get that your dad is trying to blend the families and all, but he shouldn't neglect his kids' needs. You didn't choose your stepmom and her kids. Your dad did. On another note, your older brother sounds like an awesome guy for taking you out to celebrate. Hang in there. A singer my daughter, 16, is obsessed with, announced they were coming to our city, so I managed to get 3 tickets through my husband's friend and surprised her for her birthday. There was initial confusion between me and my husband since he had assumed that his daughter, 18, would get the 3rd ticket. But we discussed it privately, and I told him that my daughter had already expressed wanting to go with one of her 2 closest friends, and since we'd gifted them to her as her only birthday present, it was only fair that she got to choose who went with, me and her friend. His daughter wasn't aware, and so there was no harm, no foul. Stepdaughter didn't express any interest in the concert and didn't ask if she could come to either me or her dad, so we assumed she didn't want to go. A few days before, her friend was unable to come due to a family matter. My daughter told me the news after school, but said that her other close friend, they're a close group of 3, was going to ask her mom if she could go. Her friend's mom called me later that day, and after talking it through for over an hour, she agreed to let her daughter go. My daughter was ecstatic since her friend isn't usually allowed to do sleepovers, out-of-house trips, etc. This agreement was only because I was going with the girls, and her mom trusts me to look after them. The day before, however, I arrive at home, and it was a fight zone. My stepdaughter and daughter were in a screaming fit, with my stepdaughter calling my daughter a female dog, selfish, ugly, fat, etc. My daughter was crying, and while also screaming back, "I hate you," and "tell her to shut up," towards my husband. It was in response to my stepdaughter starting it and yelling awful things at her. Husband was doing an awful job at keeping the peace, but I managed to defuse the situation. It turned out my stepdaughter was upset she wasn't going to the concert. My husband said we should give stepdaughter a ticket since she really wanted to go, but I refused. I told him that her behavior towards my daughter was disgusting, and while I don't have any say in disciplining and parenting her, I wasn't going to reward that behavior either. The tickets were paid by me and were in my name, and if stepdaughter went, then my daughter wouldn't, and it was her gift. We had this conversation privately, and while he talked to his daughter about what she'd said to mine, and that she wasn't going to the concert, he was pissed at me privately and told me I was the reason why stepdaughter and my daughter don't have a good relationship. We went to the concert and the girls had a great time, but my stepdaughter is staying at her mom's and refusing to talk to any of us, and my husband is still angry. Am I the a-hole for not letting stepdaughter go to the concert? Not the a-hole, and your husband needs to set boundaries and expectations for his daughter while she is in your home. Throwing a screaming tantrum and calling your younger stepsister names is not how an 18-year-old should behave. Not the a-hole. You bought the tickets for your daughter for her birthday as a gift. She gets to choose who she wants to enjoy the concert with and who she'd like to spend time with in general, especially on her birthday. You are not the a-hole for standing by your daughter and not rewarding her stepsister by giving her a ticket. All you'd be doing is showing her that unacceptable behavior, throwing a fit, calling your daughter names, etc., will get her what she wants. That's not how the world works. Your husband is the a-hole by enabling his daughter to behave that way. She's 18, not 8. The reason they don't have a good relationship is because she's letting his daughter treat yours like a punching bag, a doormat. I'm glad the girls had a good time. Happy belated birthday to your daughter, OP. Not the a-hole. And I'll reinforce what everyone was saying on the other step-sibling concert as a gift post from the other day. No one is entitled to someone else's gift. Step-siblings, and any other siblings, are not entitled to extra tickets, especially ones gifted to someone. I, 23 female, have an older brother, 29 male. Our parents obviously favor him. Not an observation, simply a fact they have stated many times. Due to our parents never being interested in my life, I grew up learning how to handle all my problems on my own. I never show any negative emotions, never talk about any issues I might have, and never trust them enough to rely on them. My brother, on the other hand, never had to deal with a problem on his own, since my mom and dad always rushed to help him. This resulted in him being completely dependent on them, even after he got married and moved out. In our culture, children usually live with their parents well into their 20s. He got married a year and a half ago, and since then has only visited us a handful of times, despite living 30 minutes away. Despite that, every week he calls and asks for help. His most recent issues, in the span of a month, he didn't have any vegetables left and needed me to bring him vegetables from our parents' garden. He needed help at university and wanted me to do the work for him. He needed my boyfriend to bring him documents from said university. My boyfriend also studies there, because he didn't know where to go to get them. And the most recent issue, he called me while I was in the middle of a very important meeting because he was scared he was going to get fined for being late on turning in signed documents to a government institution and needed me to find out what he should do. I don't know. I have nothing to do with that. When my parents came home, I told them this was getting absurd. He's not a baby, and I'm not his personal manager. He should be able to handle his issues on his own, and I'm not going to fix everything for him. My parents told me I was acting selfish and that I needed to help my brother. They also brought my boyfriend into the conversation, saying he was also selfish, since he's going through the same things at university and should help my brother. My boyfriend does in fact help my brother every week, going as far as delivering him documents because my brother can't be bothered to get them himself. So I don't want to speak to any of my family members because I think I deserve some space. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole, but time to whip out the oldest trick in the book. Be extremely terrible with all requests. Boy wants documents. Get the wrong ones. Wants food? Yeah, sure, but you're busy, so maybe like an hour, or an hour after that. When that hour rolls around, you're suddenly stuck with something else. Make yourself a snack with the food and realize your oversight and profusely apologize. Once his white's washed, it would be a shame if a red garment made its way in with that. Once you're seen as incompetent, you will find inner peace and outer peace. They'll leave you alone, hopefully. Not the a-hole. If you can do it without your parents causing big problems for you, cut all support for him and focus on your own studies. If you can move out, do. And your boyfriend needs to stop doing your brother's work for him. If you need to push back more gently, then don't do things as promptly. Maybe every 2 weeks instead of every week. I'd want to go on strike. No support at all. But I can see how that would get hard for you. And I think your boyfriend needs to start finding his assignments getting tougher, more time-consuming, etc., less time to help. He shouldn't be doing any of that stuff. Ridiculous situation. I hope you can get out of it soon. Not the a-hole. He's your family. You should help your brother, and you have. But he seems to have been coddled so much he doesn't even try to do anything by himself. You making a boundary for your own mental health isn't a bad thing. As for you being selfish, when is the last time he helped you? Or that he took time out of his day to make your life easier? It seems your brother only asks for favors and never gives them, so why isn't he selfish? I would be very clear with your parents about you needing space and why. Your parents have said many times they favor him over you, which let them prioritize him over you. Now, you are prioritizing your own well-being over them, so they shouldn't be surprised. My older sister usually took me places when I needed a ride, and sometimes I'd stay over. The thing is, her husband is really toxic. He expects me to clean up after him, attempts to teach me how I should treat my future husband, and always has something negative to say about my career choices, just because they wouldn't make me a good wife or mom. I found myself doing some work at their house that I became physically and mentally exhausted. The longer I stay there, the more they demanded from me, and it gradually becomes more and more toxic. A few months ago, my dad contacted my 4-month pregnant older sister, looking to see if her and her husband would take me in for some house training. I knew nothing of this. She told me to pack up because she was coming to get me in a few hours. I was so confused and asked why, and when she told me, I was pissed. I didn't think I needed it, and if I did, I'd rather get it from a pro. I had just got back from staying for a month. I left back to my dad's because since my sister was pregnant, she'd asked me to do her favors constantly, which were really just chores. I felt tired, but would usually always do them for her with no complaints, but decided I needed a break, so I went back home. So when she called me, I knew they would use this as an excuse to do even more work than I was already doing. I immediately told her, no, bye, and hung up the phone. I understood that that was rude, but I genuinely was so shocked and emotional, I didn't even care. I never called back and waited for my dad to ask me why I wasn't over there. He did 2 weeks later. I gave him some BS excuse. That was true, but wasn't really the full reason why I didn't want to go. So I didn't have to throw them under the bus. He agreed to let me stay, and so I did. A few days after, I called her back, and the first thing I did was apologize for how I handled things and explain to her how my dad said it was fine if I stayed home. We talked about it a bit, and then she asked me about my classes. I started my first year of college. All of a sudden, her phone hangs up. I thought her phone died until a few minutes later she called back, but this time it wasn't her. It was her husband. He argued with me on why I was so ungrateful to not come, and that I need the training. I explained to him how I'm setting down a boundary for the first time in my life and saying no. He proceeded to put me down, then told me I can never go to them for anything ever again. I was so upset it felt like an apple was stuck in my throat. I stayed as calm as I could and told him if that was what they wanted, then fine. I ended the call and just cried. I found out she was telling my family that I never apologized to her, even though I did. So now I had people calling me telling me to apologize to her when it should be the other way around. She tried contacting me through text about random things, as if nothing happened. But I never responded because I feel hurt. It's been months and her baby shower is coming up very soon. She invited me. Not the a-hole. You need to focus on your education, not on being caretakers of your sister and her husband. He actually seems like the real problem there. She knows that you apologized to her. He probably thinks it's not enough since he wanted to be able to order you around some more. Do not listen to them about being house-trained. You don't need to be ordered around about cleaning up after men. They're not helpless. Not the a-hole. Your sister's husband must have a 1950s view on women. You need training? Putting down your career to be a good wife, mother. First off, it's not his place to tell you what to do with your life. Secondly, it sounds like this man wants to control your life along with his wife's, and your sister is perfectly fine with that. Stay away from them. Right now, it looks like her invite is less of an apology and more of an attempt to put pressure on you to agree with her and her husband's demands. Absolutely not the a-hole, but everyone else is. Her husband is looking at you in a way he shouldn't be by trying to tell you how to be good to your future husband. Good on you for setting a boundary. This happened a few months ago, but I've been thinking about it more recently. My mom, 45 female, and dad, 45 male, divorced when I was 5. My mom cheated on my dad with Tom, who was also married at the time. Tom has 2 kids from his previous marriage. They have 1 kid right now from their own marriage. As soon as my parents divorced, my mom got married to Tom, and my dad got full custody of me. So I only used to see my mom on weekends. Tom's ex-wife is a super busy woman, so Tom's kids only see her on holidays. Because of this, I guess my mom felt some kind of responsibility to step up and act as their mom. She treats them very well and does things with them that she's never done with me. She picks them up from school, packs them cute little lunches, plans them amazing birthdays, goes on amazing vacations with them, and participates in their lives fully. She chooses going on their school job events or meetings over going to mine, literally every single time. I'd ask her to do something with me, and she'd say, "Oh my God, sorry baby, going shopping with Tom's kids," or something like that. She never did anything with me if it wasn't a weekend. The final straw was when I had a super important state champ volleyball game, and I asked her, "You'll come, right?" She told me, "Of course," and she, of course, didn't come. My dad got a girlfriend when I was 12, Holly. Holly is super lovely and treats me amazing. She has 2 younger kids who I absolutely adore. Holly treats me like I'm one of her kids. She comes to all of my important school events when my dad couldn't. She came when she heard my mom didn't come to my state champ game. No hard feelings that I asked my mom instead of her. Instead, she tried to cheer me up. Graduation time rolled around and I had already decided on who I wanted at my graduation. My dad, Holly, and Holly's kids. As I was eating dinner at my mom's on the weekend, My mom brought up my graduation and said she couldn't wait to see me walk the stage. I told her that my graduation wasn't a weekend day, so she wouldn't be seeing me. She laughed at first, but then realized I wasn't joking. I told her that I don't want to hurt Holly's feelings by inviting her, and that Holly came before her because she's more of a mother figure than my mom has ever been. I told her if she came, I'd be very upset. Afterwards, my mom called me and apologized profusely and said she didn't know I felt that way and that she'll be a better mother. I told her I gave her multiple chances. Am I the a-hole? I know she just wanted to be a good mom to kids who didn't have a present mom, and as of now, she really wants to fix things. But I've already given up on her. I've cried too much because of her, and now I don't like being around her. Not the a-hole. You were and still are a child. She abandoned you multiple times. You now are old enough to process this and decide what is good for your own mental health. You gravitated towards the woman who was actually there for you, even though she didn't need to. Your mother made her choice very clear. Her preferences are her stepchildren, and now these are the consequences of her actions. Don't feel bad. She really isn't a good mother to you. The cat's in the cradle. Your mom is reaping what she sowed. You have chosen the people who have been there and supported you to be at your graduation. Your mom has a lot of making up to do. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. I think she needed this reality check. Anyway, sounds like she just started to understand that she was wrong, so I would give her another chance. But it's up to you. Only do it if you are comfortable with it.